Srila Prabhupada ki, Bhakti Caitanya Swami ki, Nitai Gaura Premanande. Natia. Haribo.
Very well talented today.
All over. From the other side, yeah?
Prabhupada said, like, flowers are the only evidence left in Newcastle. You're very opulent today. Hare Krishna. So thank you everyone for coming. And this is the fourth installment of the Glories of Srila Prabhupada. So again, let's give a warm welcome to Maharaj by loudly chanting the Hare Krishna mantra on the count of three. 1, 2, 3. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Well, devotees, thank you for the warm welcome. Again, very nice of you. So, okay, let us begin, and I'll begin by chanting some prayers. Namo Vishnu Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale, Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namane, Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Vijayane, Nera Vishesha Shindalari Paskachaya Shatane, Vanchikapachuriyas Chakri Prasindhya Satitanam Pavaneyo Vaishnaveyo Namo Namaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasudeva Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Yes, welcome everyone, one and all. A very warm welcome, a hot welcome. So, this evening, devotees, well, we've had themes, at least the last 2 nights we had specific things, and the first night actually, at least for a while. And we'll also have a little bit of a theme here too, to start off with. Maybe not for long, but just, a little while. And the theme will be compassion. And here's a story which probably many of you have heard before, because I mean, it's a story I like, and I have told it on numerous occasions. Right. Yes. So the story goes like this, that Srila Prabhupada was in Los Angeles in, I think it was 73. Srila Prabhupada stayed in Los Angeles for quite some time. Because the BBT had just moved there from Boston, and Prabhupada really wanted to get it to develop the BBT. And at the time, Los Angeles was the biggest temple, and he wanted the Los Angeles temple to be like, the center of ISKCON and really have the highest standards. So anyway, the BBT was there, and one day, one young lady, like in sort of 20-ish or thereabouts, moved into the temple. And as it turned out, she was something of an artist. And she actually expressed the desire that if there's an opportunity, I would really be, very happy if I got the chance to paint paintings for Prabhupada's books. So Rameshwar Prabhu, who was the head of the BBT, and Radha Vallabha Prabhu, who was his right-hand man, they said to her, okay, well, can you paint a painting, please? And we'll take it to Srila Prabhupada, and we'll see what he thinks. So she painted a painting. And so Rameshwar, maybe even Chahat Waita Maharaj was there too, but I think it was Radha Vallabha and Rameshwar, took her in to meet Prabhupada. And she had painted a painting, and they explained to Prabhupada that who she is and the situation. She's painted a painting. She'd like her work to go into some of the books. And so she handed over her painting to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada looked at the painting, and Prabhupada, well, he asked, what is this? And it was Krishna looking rather miserable. And so Prabhupada asked, what's this? And the girl said, well, Srila Prabhupada, this is Lord Krishna feeling separation from Radharani. And Srila Prabhupada started, shaking his head like this and saying, this is not what Krishna looks like when he's feeling separation from Radharani. That separation is the highest ecstasy. And you've made Krishna look like some young fellow who just lost his girlfriend. So he's sort of, in depression. And Prabhupada said, no, we can't use this painting. And in general, he wasn't really impressed. And the girl started crying. And crying. And crying. And then crying some more. And the devotees who were with her, these two devotees, they're brahmacharis. And so, they felt like sort of taking her out of the room because it was, it was just really inappropriate, at least they felt very strongly. So anyway, so she's crying and crying and crying and crying, and she wouldn't stop or couldn't stop or didn't stop, couldn't, wouldn't, and didn't stop crying. And Prabhupada's looking at her. Then Prabhupada said, let me have another look at your painting. I'm sure some of you have heard this story. I've told it many times. Let me have another look at your painting. So when he was looking at it before, he was going like, not just the Indian sort of, but no, that sort of thing. And now Prabhupada has the painting again, and now Prabhupada's going like this. And Prabhupada said, yes, we can use this painting. Prabhupada said, we will call this painting Krishna Has a Headache. So, Prabhupada was very compassionate and concerned about the devotees. devotees wanted to do a particular service, he really liked to see them facilitated. Even if they really weren't very good at it in a sort of technical sense. Yeah. So, anyway, that's an interesting one. Then, here's another related story. One devotee asked Srila Prabhupada, can we all have a relationship with you, Srila Prabhupada? Oh, anyway, Prabhupada said, okay, anyway, this is the sort of the theme, that we can all have a relationship with Prabhupada. One devotee asked Prabhupada, is the spiritual master present in the heart of the devotee? And Srila Prabhupada replied, yes, if you let me enter. Right. And then Prabhupada says it's actually in the purport of Bhagavatam 4th Canto, chapter 28, verse 47. 428, 47. Prabhupada says, the disciple and spiritual master are never separated because the spiritual master always keeps company with the disciple as long as the disciple follows strictly the instructions of the spiritual master. And Prabhupada said, if you, this is now another incident, if you think of me and work for me, then I am in your heart. If you love somebody, he's in your heart. It is common thing. Everyone understands it. If I love somebody, or if I hate somebody, that person is also in my heart. Therefore, simply by hating Krishna, one can get salvation, like Kamsa. So if you want to hate Krishna. Okay. Right. And here's another one, which, well, this is a story told to me by Bhavananda Prabhu, who maybe, if you've been to Mayapur, you might know he's who he is, or maybe you might even know him. I sort of know him pretty well. And he told a story about an incident which happened with Prabhupada and him in Mayapur. They were up on top of the Lotus building, if you're familiar with the Lotus building. And Prabhupada was speaking to Bhavananda about how wonderful Mayapur is. The area around it's very beautiful. And Prabhupada was saying that I want to develop Mayapur so that the whole world can come and just see how wonderful Mayapur is. And then Prabhupada started talking about how horrible the material world is. And Prabhupada said that actually I never wanted to come here, but Krishna asked me to come and present my books. Then Prabhupada said, I told Krishna that I didn't want to come because it's such a horrible place. But Bhavananda Prabhu said, but Krishna insisted and said, you have to come and present your books. Anyway, Hare Krishna. That's interesting, isn't it? Yeah. So twice he said, he never wanted to come, but Krishna asked him to come and present his books. Then Prabhupada said he told Krishna he didn't. didn't want to come because it's so horrible. But then Krishna insisted and said he had to present his books. And you know, it's a very interesting point. I assume we all have appreciation to whatever degree of Srila Prabhupada's books. I assume that's there in our hearts. Although maybe some of us, at least some devotees sometimes tell me, they find them a little sort of heavy going, kind of, intensely philosophical. But I think generally devotees have some feeling of appreciation for Prabhupada's books. Yes, and the thing is, the way Prabhupada emphasized his books, he really emphasized his books a lot. And so therefore we can understand that to him, and would mean also in the general sense, that his books are very important. They're obviously very important to him in the sense he felt they were very important for the people. Yeah, that's a fact. I mean, that was very clear. And, the thing is this, I would say a very important point in this regard is that we need to cultivate a taste, not just an idea like, oh yeah, the books are important, but cultivate a taste for reading Prabhupada's books and really, getting into them, not just in a kind of, academic or clinical sense, just because, Prabhupada said we should, which he did, but because they actually have great value. And the fact that they have great value can be seen in the fact that many devotees have come to Krishna consciousness, particularly through reading Prabhupada's books. I don't know about yourselves, but I know in gatherings of devotees sometimes the question is asked, how many of you came to Krishna consciousness sort of through Prabhupada's books, and many devotees put their hands up. How many of you feel that you say you came to Krishna consciousness to a substantial degree due to Prabhupada's books? Yeah. Okay. Note I didn't put my hand up. Because I only started reading, I got Prabhupada's books on the way to Krishna. Well before I was involved in Krishna consciousness. And I couldn't really understand it. I couldn't really follow it. But then when I moved into the temple, I may have mentioned the other days that I started, everyone told me I must read Bhagavad Gita, so I started reading, after I'd been living in the temple, say 2 weeks, maybe 3, I'm sure not more than 3, but maybe around 2 or so. So I read Bhagavad Gita. Actually, the first book I really tried to read was first canto Srimad Bhagavatam. And in those days we had Bhagavatam. First canto, I have to surrender to Krishna. There's no alternative. No good alternative. But anyway, my point is not so much about me, really, but just in general, that we should read, must read Prabhupada's books. Not just read, but we should really try and get a taste. Because if we can get a taste for reading Prabhupada's books, it'll be highly beneficial to us. And the fact that, that it's important is just, it's clear due to the different statements Prabhupada made. Like there's the one video, maybe you saw it, where Prabhupada says, if a person just reads one page, I think, then maybe it's one sentence, then just one word, his life will change. So Prabhupada took his books very, very seriously. And we should, not just we should read them, but we should work on it and get a taste for them. Let me just, maybe it's sort of a bit of a deviation, but let me tell you how I would say I managed to get to whatever degree, which probably isn't much, but some sort of taste for reading Prabhupada's books. It was 75, or maybe it was 74. We were traveling and doing book distribution in Northern Ireland during the Civil War. And just an interesting little side note. We saw bombs go off, generally a couple of times a week. We saw bombs go off. And sometimes big bombs, you see a mushroom cloud going up, that sort of thing. Not like an atomic bomb, but not just some smoke and that's it. So anyway, we had our program. We were living in a transit van, and we would chant our rounds. We get up early. I was in charge of the party, and we slept 5 hours a night. We set our clock or whatever we had, clock it must have been 5 hours. That's what we slept, and then we would get up, take bath, and chant our rounds and finish our rounds. And then we had things worked out. So we then had half an hour, during which we would read. And for 15 minutes, I read Bhagavatam, 15 minutes, Chaitanya Charitamrita. But I always, and I actually mean always, would fall asleep. And, it was clear this is not good. So then what to do. Then somehow I got this inspiration from Krishna to take notes as I was reading, particularly just to keep me awake. At least give it a try, see if it helps. And I found it helped. From then on, I didn't fall asleep at all. Oh yeah. And I really got into it. It was definitely Krishna's mercy. Yeah, so anyway, from one point of view, to stay awake, from another point of view, to help one become more absorbed in the subject matter, and in that way get a taste. I found it really worked. It really helped. Really helped. And I recommend it. So, okay. What now? Oh, yes. Here's a little story told by one devotee. devotee who then wrote this whole event out, and that's how we got a copy of it, came to Srila Prabhupada and said, Prabhupada, I'd like to apologize for being so fallen and wretched. I never seem to be able to do anything right. I try to give people some advice. It doesn't help. Because even if I think I'm right, they tell me I'm wrong. I just want your forgiveness because I'm so confused. Devotee said this. Prabhupada replied, they criticized Lord Chaitanya and Krishna. And the devotee was sort of astonished to hear this. But then he thought, maybe Prabhupada has not understood what I'm trying to say. So he said, devotee said again, Srila Prabhupada, I'm not trying to criticize Lord Chaitanya and Krishna. I'm just trying to apologize. I'm sorry that I'm so fallen, that I'm not better than I am. And then Prabhupada repeated, they criticized Lord Chaitanya and Krishna. Even when Krishna was here, they did not accept him. Only a few hundred people accepted that he was God. Everyone else was criticizing. And when Lord Chaitanya was here, they even threw a pot at Lord Nityananda. They did not like to accept him. So what to speak of you and me? Then the devotee became just overwhelmed, understanding that Prabhupada had understood him even better than he understood himself. So then the devotee asked Prabhupada, so then what is to be done? Should we just go on trying? And Prabhupada said, yes, just go on trying. Yeah. Even means, even if you don't really seem to be doing anything, particularly outstanding or something like that. Now here's one which was told to me actually by Niranjan Maharaj, who was told by a devotee who was present. Prabhupada was having his massage, and his secretary was reading the mail to him. And this devotee who told Niranjan Maharaj was just sitting there, just sort of taking in the scene and listening to the letters. And Prabhupada generally wouldn't comment. I mean, he might speak a reply, he might not also. But then there was one letter, and the secretary read this letter. In the letter, the devotee says, Srila Prabhupada, I'm having so much difficulty in Krishna consciousness. Really so much. And particularly, I have a problem with smoking. I follow the regulative principles, but then after a while, somehow or other, I just become bewildered and I start smoking. And I smoke for a couple of weeks, and then somehow or other I just pull out of it. And then I continue on for a few weeks, just, without smoking. But then I get bewildered again, and I start smoking again. And then I pull myself out of it, and I'm sort of all right for a little while. And then I become bewildered and smoke again. And this devotee who told Niranjan Maharaj, told Maharaj that he was sitting there thinking, what sort of nonsense is this? He's not really a devotee. What sort of devotee is he? He's not really a devotee. And Prabhupada was very thoughtful, listening to this, and then after reading of the letter finished, Prabhupada was silent, sort of looking down and just thinking about it. Then, to the surprise of this devotee who had been listening and was thinking, what sort of devotee is this? He's not really a devotee. To his surprise, Srila Prabhupada said, what a great soul. He's trying so hard for Krishna, even though he has the serious problem, but he's continuing to try for Krishna. What a great soul. Now, if any of you are from smoking backgrounds, please don't think that it's okay now. Smoke a few cigarettes and you'll think, oh, I'm a great soul, actually. I'm certified as a great soul. Anyway, you get the idea. I told that story before, right? You've heard that story before? No. Okay. Well, here's another one, which was told to me by Narendra Maharaj at the same time, which you may well have heard, because I don't know which one I told most. Prabhupada was in America, and wherever he would go, like he'd visit temples around, and devotees would come, and so there'd be, like a whole number of devotees there. And the devotees would attend Mangal Arati. Then after Mangal Arati, the devotees, at least those who are second initiated, would chant Gayatri. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj was there, who was, a very dedicated disciple of Srila Prabhupada. I mean, very, very dedicated. But at the same time, he was sort of extremely sensitive. And if someone did something wrong, he would often just really let them know that you did something wrong. You really did something wrong, in no uncertain terms. So anyway, there they are. He's there, a few other sannyasis, and Jayananda Prabhu was there, who I assume you're all aware. He was a very outstanding devotee. Amazing. So immediately after Mangal Arati, all those who are second initiated would sit down and chant Gayatri, including Jayananda, Tamara Krishna Maharaj. Chanting Gayatri takes plus or minus 5 minutes. I mean, if you do it and you really try and focus, it takes 5 minutes, actually. Jayananda Prabhu finished in 1 minute. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj was thinking, what? This is impossible. I mean, you just cannot chant the mantras that quickly. It's just not humanly possible. So, but then Jayananda walked out of the temple room, and Tamal Krishna Maharaj he's still got another 4 minutes to go of chanting his Gayatri. So he couldn't just jump up and stop him and ask him, what's going on? So, but eventually, after some minutes, he finished his Gayatri mantras, and he got up, and he went out, and went over to Srila Prabhupada's room, where Prabhupada was staying in the temple, and he just wanted to just walk in, which, he would often do. He wouldn't really wait to be invited so much. But the secretary or whatever on the door said, no, you must wait. Prabhupada said, no one must come in for a little while. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj asked, well, what's Prabhupada doing? And the devotee said, I don't know, but Jayananda Prabhu is with him. And Prabhupada specifically said, please do not disturb me. Then, shortly after, Jayananda Prabhu came out. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj asked him, you were with Prabhupada? Yes. What were you doing? Prabhupada said, Jayananda Prabhu said, Prabhupada was giving me the Gayatri mantras. Now, as it happened, Jayananda Prabhu had received second initiation a few years before, one of the earlier ones actually. And in fact, he had just been sitting there supposedly chanting Gayatri for 1 minute. So anyway, Tamal Krishna Maharaj asked him, so what were you doing with Prabhupada? And Jayananda Prabhu said, Prabhupada was giving me Gayatri. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj asked him, well, what do you mean? You received Gayatri, before me, some years ago. What do you mean? Prabhupada was giving you Gayatri. Jayananda Prabhu said, I have a serious problem. I keep forgetting the mantras. So every 6 months or so, I go back to Prabhupada. He gives me the mantras again. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj just said, what is this? Come on. And he was just he really got disturbed about it. So then he said to Jayananda Prabhu, come with me, let's go and we'll speak with Prabhupada. So in they went. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj said to Prabhupada, this Jayananda, you just gave him Gayatri, but he received Gayatri a few years ago. So what sort of Brahmin is he? No, he's not a Brahmin. He's not really a Brahmin. This is very bad. This is very bad. Srila Prabhupada did not, in capital letters, not appreciate Tamal Krishna Maharaj's sort of outburst. And Srila Prabhupada said to Tamal Krishna Maharaj that Jayananda Prabhu is so sincere, he could chant anything and Krishna will accept it. So anyway, don't think that you can just chant anything and Krishna will accept it. But yeah, Prabhupada really appreciated Jayananda Prabhu. Okay, now let's see. Okay. Right. Well, here's an interesting one, which Shrutikirti Prabhu tells. He was serving Srila Prabhupada in Vrindavan, and at night, kind of late-ish, he would massage Prabhupada under Prabhupada's mosquito net. And Prabhupada, this was in the later months, like the last year, that Prabhupada was present. And therefore, Shrutikirti previously he would sleep in the next room, but now he would sleep under Prabhupada's bed, just in case there was some emergency during the night. So there he was now, sleeping under the net, or under his own net, whatever. And then suddenly he woke up, Shrutikirti Prabhu, hearing a sort of like a bang. Something had happened in the room. So he immediately got up. And the thing was, Prabhupada at that point was very ill. and couldn't even walk. If he was to go anywhere, to the temple room or even just to the bathroom, he had to be carried. But during the night, that night, he had tried to go to the toilet on his own, but he fell, and that was the bang. So Srila Prabhu asked Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, what were you doing? Why didn't you just wake me up? That's what I'm here for. I'm here specifically to help you for anything, particularly if you need to move. And Srila Prabhupada said, well, I saw you were sleeping, and I didn't want to disturb you, so I thought I would try to go myself. But anyway, you get the idea, right? Yeah. Srila Prabhupada is really a very special person. And let me tell you another story which Srila Kirti just told us a few days ago, which I'd never heard before, and I doubt you've heard it. There is a devotee, she's still a member of ISKCON, named Govinda Dasi, who is somewhat well known for kind of like encouraging worship of Tulsi. Maybe she's written something about it, but she would sort of distribute Tulsi to different temples back in Prabhupada's time, which Prabhupada appreciated. And she was married to a devotee named Gaurasundar. Now this Gaurasundar, unfortunately, he bought a property in Hawaii, which was ISKCON Hawaii, for some time. But then at some point he sort of went off the rails spiritually, and he sold the building and kept the money. It's a very well-known thing that happened. And then he just went off and started living basically like a hippie, and living off that money, which, is a substantial amount of money. So Prabhupada then, sometime after that, not so long, like it sounded, Srila Kirti Prabhu didn't say exactly how long, but it sounded like maybe a year later, sometime later, not just like immediately going and, what are you doing? Selling the property, where's the money? That sort of thing. Now listen to this. When I heard this, my Lord, it was amazing. So Prabhupada wanted to go and visit Gaurasundar, who was living not on the main island where most of the people live and where our temple is, but he went to another island, kind of out of the way. Prabhupada wanted to go and visit him, so he did, with Srila Kirti Prabhu. They both went and visited Gaurasundar. So in they went, and Srila Kirti Prabhu wasn't really sure what's Prabhupada going to do. Is he going to try and get him to give the money back? Or is he going to try and get him to become a devotee again, or what's he going to do? But what Prabhupada did was, he sat down and he said to Gaurasundar Prabhu, what did I do to you to offend you so badly? And then he repeated it several times. What did I do to you to offend you so badly? And he didn't say, so badly that you then did whatever you did or felt the way you felt. But Prabhupada just repeatedly asked him, what offences did I make to you? How that you became so offended with me? Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Here's something. This is from a purport of Srila Prabhupada, which I think is a very important purport. It's from the purport to Bhagavatam 4th Canto, Chapter 9, verse 7. If you want to look it up. 497. So Prabhupada writes there, the significant point in Dhruva Maharaja's statement is that he wanted the association of pure devotees. Transcendental devotional service cannot be complete and cannot be relishable without the association of devotees. We have therefore established the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Anyone who is trying to be aloof from this Krishna Consciousness Society and yet engage in Krishna Consciousness is living in a great hallucination, for this is not possible. Anyway, some food for thought there. Anyone who's trying to be aloof from this Krishna Consciousness Society and yet engage in Krishna Consciousness is living in a great hallucination, for this is not possible. And I mean, you could look it up and read it yourselves if you want. But then Prabhupada goes on to say that if a devotee is trying to live like that, separate from ISKCON and the association of the ISKCON devotees, Prabhupada says that for such a devotee or such a devotee, their spiritual activities will not become distinct from their material activities. They'll be in a mixed condition, a mixed type of position. So here's another story. A devotee was meeting with Prabhupada and explaining that, oh, Prabhupada, there's so many difficulties in ISKCON. You know, devotees have difficult situations that are difficult, and squabbling which is difficult, and whatnot, so many difficulties. And Prabhupada responded, whatever happens, don't leave ISKCON. Just like it is said, England, with all thy faults, I love thee. This material world is described as an ocean. Often in the ocean there are storms, and one may become seasick. But that doesn't mean you should jump off the boat. It will make things much worse. Yes. So here's a related one from a devotee who was present. One day Prabhupada said, it was in a class, I've given you this big ISKCON movement. If you can, please expand it. He said, at least maintain it. Don't let this decrease. Then he said, please cooperate, as he said so many times before. And then Prabhupada started to cry. Everyone in the room started crying. And this devotee says, that was probably the most painful moment of my life, to see Prabhupada cry. So we have this movement. It's Prabhupada's movement. We have the good, we have the bad, and we have the ugly. I don't know if you're familiar with Clint Eastwood, but anyway. Yeah, so, I don't know what to do with this, but anyway, too bad. Yes, we have the good, we have the bad, and we have the ugly. But we just have to be determined to never leave the ISKCON movement. We just have to always try to push it forward. If there's a problem, push the movement forward. Because when you leave ISKCON, you make Prabhupada cry. So let's make Prabhupada happy and push on Krishna consciousness to every town and village. Right, let's see. Here's another one. Yeah, okay. Now this is from a devotee named Nandakumar, who was a sannyasi actually. He's an American by birth. He had just become Prabhupada's secretary the day before. Or that day actually. He says that he was so busy and learning what to do and what not to do, and it was just not an easy service. He couldn't finish his rounds. He just, late at night, he was too exhausted. So he thought, he had done 14 rounds. And he thought, okay, well, he says, it was the first time I'd ever missed chanting 16 rounds. I had completed 14 and I was so tired, I rationalized that it was better to take rest and make them up the next day, as we had been told we could do. So then I went into Prabhupada's room early the next morning. The first thing His Divine Grace said to me was, so, are you chanting all your rounds? Yeah. And as always, he knew everything without requiring any outside information. I told him that I'd missed 2 rounds the previous day, that I was going to make them up that day. And Srila Prabhupada said, when you're regularly chanting 16 rounds, it is like a young child learning to walk with the help of the mother. Because the mother is holding the child's hand, when the child starts to fall, the mother holds the child up, and the child doesn't actually fall. It is the same with chanting. If you're completing 16 rounds and start to fall down, Krishna will hold you up and not allow that to happen. Then Prabhupada, with his eyes open very wide, and a transcendental move of his hand back and forth in front of his face, His Divine Grace said, however, if you are not chanting at least 16 rounds every day, your whereabouts are unknown, and you will definitely fall down. Hare Krishna. And you all know, every single last one of you, and particularly Chaitanya Prabhu, you know the story about the airline stewardess in Venezuela, don't you? Okay, so I don't need to tell you that. So just like I read a joke. Oh, good boy. Big smiles. Haribol. Oh. Have I lost track? What was I going to say?
You were going to say about the airline steward in Venezuela.
I think I was not going to. Because everyone, and I was going to tell a joke.
Oh.
This man, he loved humour, and he found there was a jokes club in the city. So, and they had meetings where they would tell jokes, like however often, on a regular basis. So he decided to go there, and he did. So there he was, and he found they were not telling the jokes. They had made a list of all the jokes, and each joke was numbered. And everyone knew every joke, backwards and forwards. So all they'd do, someone would say, "Number 54," and everyone would roar with laughter. And then someone else would say, "Number 63," and everyone would roar with laughter, because they all remembered the joke. Then someone said, "Number 75," and everyone screamed with laughter. People were falling off their seats, and it was just like, they were going wild. And the visitor was wondering, now what happened here? Is this some super special joke? So he asked one of the people, this is a much bigger reaction of laughing than to the other ones. And the man said, the thing was, it was the way he told it. Pardon my British sense of humour. It was the way he told it. Oh dear. Okay, I've got to find one final joke. Okay. It's not a joke. It's a Prabhupada story. And you may have heard this before, but I'll tell you anyway. This is from Govinda Maharaj, who was present. You know the joke? No, not joke, the story. So Govinda Maharaj was there in Vrindavan when Prabhupada was in the process of departing, going back to Godhead. And he was there when it actually happened, and he was there for weeks before, Govinda Maharaj. And he was in the group, the Kirtan group. And he and, various devotees, they would go in and sing quiet kirtan for Prabhupada for hours every day. There were a few groups, and each group had some hours for singing to Prabhupada. So they were there, him and Maharaj and his group were there singing for Prabhupada, when who should come but Krishnadas Babaji. Krishnadas Babaji, one of Prabhupada's godbrothers, who, Prabhupada, he was not so, I don't know how to put it, but impressed with a lot of his godbrothers. Really a lot of them, actually. But he had a very good relationship with Krishnadas Babaji. And so Krishnadas Babaji walked in and jumped on the bed, Prabhupada's lying on his back. Krishnadas Babaji jumped down by Prabhupada's feet at the end of the bed and started talking to Prabhupada in Bengali. But not just talking, joking and laughing. Prabhupada was just so sort of stoic, just no emotions, generally. But now, Krishnadas Babaji's joking and laughing. And Prabhupada started laughing and joking back. And, he really sort of outwardly perked up, or his mood changed considerably. Then And suddenly Prabhupada turned to the devotees and said, Tandira Charana Sevi Bhakta Sanevas Janame Janame Hoy E Abhilas. You know what that means? All I want to do, lifetime after lifetime, is to live with devotees and serve their lotus feet. Then he turned back to Krishnadas Maharaj, and then off they went again. And, joking and laughing and everything. For 5 minutes or so, suddenly Prabhupada turned to the disciples. Tandira Charana Sevi, Bhakta Samevas, Janame Janame Hoy, E Abhilas. Exactly the same thing. E Abhilas, my only desire is, I want to live with the devotees and serve their lotus feet, birth after birth. Then he turned back to Krishnadas Babaji, and again it was the same thing, laughing and like a very jolly type of scene, despite Prabhupada's, being like super inconvenienced by his physical condition. So again it went on for 5 minutes or so, and then again, Tandira Charana Sevi, Bhakta Samivas, Janame Janame Hoy, E Abhilas. Yeah. All I want, my only desire, is to live with devotees and serve their lotus feet, birth after birth. Yeah, wow, amazing. Very amazing. Extremely amazing, actually. So there you go, devotees. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Okay. Should we just have kirtan, or should we?
Yeah, you can see if there's, maybe a few minutes for questions or reflections.
Yeah, questions or reflections. If anyone has anything they'd like to say or ask or some remembrance, yes, Prabhu.
Thank you, Maharaj, for the lecture. Thank you for sharing the Srila Prabhupada's past time. I just got a question. They say that International Society of Krishna Consciousness is the movement of compassion. Is that right to say like that?
Well, you could say that, yes. In that, it is a movement. It's not just, although officially International Society, which means, that term is used very widely for groups of people who share a particular interest. And more often than not, they just have meetings from time to time where they discuss whatever their interest happens to be. But now this is not just like that, it is a movement. It means we're going somewhere, we're doing something, which is, we're trying to distribute Krishna consciousness, trying to give people Krishna consciousness, and not just like a group of people who get together. In this case, for a week, we get together in the evenings and talk about Prabhupada. Although, it's extremely important to do that. But we are a movement. And that distribution of Krishna consciousness is the greatest act of compassion. It's a fact. It's far greater than just in a mundane sense feeding the hungry people. Of course we do feed hungry people, but we give them prasadam. So it's actually a preaching activity. It's not just feeding hungry people. So therefore, to say or to understand that the main part, or a very essential part of what is ISKCON is compassion, is very correct and very nice. And, you know, when we go out, particularly when we're sort of relatively newer in Krishna consciousness, then when we go out to distribute it sometimes, like Chaitanya Prabhu was out distributing books today. And what is it, on Saturday, we're going out on the sacred street party. So we'll be distributing Krishna consciousness in different ways, chanting and book distribution and speaking to people. So we may not feel compassion. In fact, we might even feel kind of out of place, you know, particularly if we're dressed as devotees, but we normally only dress as devotees when we come to the temple, for example. We may think, well, people are going to look at me and think I'm some sort of unusual person or something. So, and when you go out distributing books, particularly if you're not really used to it, then you may find it difficult to approach people and talk to people. And you're not really feeling, wow, I just want to help these unfortunate people. You may think, well, I've just been told I have to do this today, so that means I've got to do it. But the thing is, even though we may not feel compassion, when you're distributing Krishna consciousness, you are being compassionate. The effect of the activity on the recipients is one of the reception of compassion. It is, even though our attitude may not necessarily be one of compassion. So therefore, to go out and distribute books, or go out and distribute Krishna consciousness in one way or another, it's good for the people who receive. They receive compassion, but it's good for us as a sadhana, as a practice, to get out of our little worlds and to do something, even if we feel a bit uncomfortable. I mean, if we don't, great, but if we do feel a bit uncomfortable, then, well, that's just too bad, I do it anyway. So it's a sadhana for our purification. Very important one. Yeah. Because otherwise you end up sort of in this kind of insulated little world of Krishna consciousness, which in a sense is nice, but it's not really what Lord Chaitanya intended for the members to really focus on, at least. Prabhu.
All right. Thank you so much for these classes, these sessions. When you mentioned Tadero Jarone, Bhaktashune Bas, Janame Janme Ei Moro Abhilash. So when you're saying that, and I was thinking that in our movement, we have devotees who have spent 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. So they really understand this mood that Tadero Jarone Bhaktashune Bas means this association we have, the society we have. But it is the fact that throughout the world, in our society, sometimes, most of the times we have many pockets of challenges that we face and coming to devotees together. And it's not that it always starts with those challenges. Sometimes the devotees are serving wonderfully as friends, as almost like more than families. Huge pitching going on, massive output we're getting from Srila Prabhupada. And then something happens, could be any society, any and then that mood is completely lost. So it just becomes completely opposite. The other returning is like never gonna happen with this team or this group or that. And it could be anywhere in the world, it happens. How can we, especially now that when I'm seeing, as I've been in this temple for 24 years now, and I'm thinking, okay, Prabhupada's disciples, they are leaving the planet, and they are like life jacket. Whether we can swim or not, we never thought about it. We can float. But next step we are seeing, when we won't have Prabhupada's disciples with us for the next 50 years, how do we manage this? And how do we protect our devotees, our devotee associations from being throughout the world? What should we do and what is the key thing?
What's the key? Well, we should have, a number of things, but we should have evenings like this regularly to review, well, including to review what's happening, but to remind us. And the seniors will need, do need and are, but there'll be a need when all the Prabhupada disciples are gone. And, whenever that is. I met, well, other than Prabhupada, personally I met one disciple of Srila Bhakti Caitanya who was initiated more or less as a child. He was the pujari at Champavati, actually. I don't know if you knew him. And but now they've all gone. And Prabhupada's gone, and there was a few other of his godbrothers who were kind of prominent and friendly. But now, what Prabhupada was doing for the devotees was like unimaginable. If Prabhupada's not going to be here, what's going to happen? Is anything going to happen? Or will everything just collapse, just bang? But here we are, and it's still going on. So the seniors have to really encourage everybody to practice nicely and to be Krishna conscious and to remember what the mission is and remember what we have to do to develop ourselves personally as devotees like that, and encourage the mood of cooperation. Because Prabhupada, just before he left, he said, your love for me will be shown by how you cooperate together after I'm gone. And I remember hearing that. And just shortly after Prabhupada left, and thinking, cooperate together? Sure, no problem. That's okay. Yeah, okay, we'll do it. But Prabhupada said that because he understood that it would not be easy to do. Yeah. But it's a real sort of prime necessity, prime beneficial thing that we do cooperate together. Yes. So that mood of cooperation needs to be encouraged, and hopefully the devotees will get it. And then, because if you remember, I read the thing, the devotee said that we have all types, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And we got a few more too. Sometimes we've got the heavy ones, and sometimes we've got, sort of a little bit nasty ones, or people they can sort of, just be nasty suddenly without too much trouble. And sometimes we've got sort of slightly, like, what would you say, socially unacceptable or difficult to accept ones. except the eccentric ones, kind of little strange ones. We got them all. And the more the movement develops, the more we'll get more even of the unusual ones. But we have to keep working together, cooperate together, despite being, different types of people. Yeah. Like, just, for example, you could say racial terms. We have, previously, I remember, I could say I was at this festival in Lithuania a week or so ago, and there were about 700 devotees there. All, except like 5 or 6, were Lithuanians, white people. And there was like 5 or 6 Indians who were there working or studying or something. And it was interesting because, a lot of the time in England, and it's the same in South Africa, it might even be worse or more, there's just such a predominance of Indians. And there's, the others are really in a minority. Yeah. And I know when the devotees, and particularly the American devotees, first went to Vrindavan, the local people, many of whom were very attached to being like Paka, Vaishnavas. And I hear these, there are no Americans here, are there? These loud Americans shouting out to each other and talking loud and, absolutely no idea of how to speak Hindi. And, these people, so many of them were just like, now what is this? But it was interesting how Prabhupada appreciated those, noisy Americans. He really did. So anyway, yeah, you get different, I'm just saying, this is an example of different types. Then you get the young ones. The kind of the worlds of their life. Not so much occupied by Krishna, some of the time. And etc., etc. So yeah, it's actually a big challenge to cooperate together. And we should really make an effort to cooperate together and to encourage everyone in our, area, which means here now, to cooperate together and not get, sort of knocked out if something goes wrong, because things will go wrong from time to time, and that's all there is to it, because it's Kali Yuga. But if you can sort of get through things when they go wrong without getting knocked out, and knocked down or knocked away, however you put it, then you're making progress. Yeah. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Lord.
Look, it's after 8. So
We'll
you
still
shouldn't.
have some.
You shouldn't. I'll go on forever.
That's okay. I think it's nice sometimes, the devotees, they've got things, they want to reflect or questions. I think it's nice.
Absolutely.
I think it's okay. And we'll still have some kirtan now.
And you know what we can do sometime, and we do this actually fairly often, have it like a questions and answers session.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, anyway, it's just a thought.
It could even be done like that on Sunday. We could ask devotees to come with questions and answers
Right.
in their mind, or even on a piece of paper. We can put them in a hat.
Yeah, sure. Well, that's the best thing, because particularly if devotees want to bring up something which they feel uncomfortable about bringing up, or they feel that others may be uncomfortable about. That's what we do in South Africa. We always have questions written down, that way we get lots more questions.
The only thing is that on Sunday we may get a lot of new people, and sometimes devotees may ask questions which are not so suitable for the audience of new persons.
True. Okay, anyway, look, you're the authority here. It's just a suggestion.
Yeah, no, it's a good idea. Let's have a little think about that. But yes, that could be a possibility.
We could even, you know what we could do? If we really wanted to do it, would on Saturday,
After the Sacred Street Party, yeah, that'd
yeah,
be a good time
we
to
could
do.
do that.
Yeah.
I mean, there's always more to say about
Yeah, we've done
Prabhupada.
4 sessions on Prabhupada. I think that's a good idea. Saturday night we can do that.
Yeah. So devotees can write down questions.
Yeah. Good idea.
Okay. Then they don't have to feel sort of,
Sure.
compromised.
Yeah, I think Saturday would be better than Sunday.
Yeah.
Sunday's better, aimed at some of the new people.
Sure. No, it should be too. Okay. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
His Holiness Bhakti Caitanya Swami ki. So we'd like to encourage everyone to stand up now. We will have Kirtan for about 10 minutes, and then we will serve Prashadam.